Hello, I'd like to introduce you to Chimere. It's our boat we've got for sale for $235,000. She's a 55-foot boat, and here we are last year, 2020, leaving for New Zealand. And sadly, we've got her for sale. I've jointly owned Chimere since 2006, which I bought initially with my brother. And from the outset, I suppose I could say that she's not for everyone, particularly if you're looking for that sleek, modern, lightweight production boat with a caravan fit out. This short video is designed to show Chimere in action, in a range of conditions, to essentially give you a feel for what she's like, her capabilities, really to help you decide whether she's the right fit for you. This is a couple of screenshots on our way to New Zealand. You can see there's 10.1 knots showing at the top there. That's our speed. Here it's down to 4.8. I think we might have had a bit of current behind us there with the previous one. And 4.8, we weren't in a big hurry. If we wanted to pick up an extra couple of knots when the wind died off, we could just put the motor on, I suppose, and 3 litres an hour diesel is what we'd be using. We had a brilliant sail across, so you can see it's pretty much a straight line right across the Tasman. Here we're doing 8.8 knots. We had a steady wind of about 20 knots for 10 days from the northwest, so it was a bit of a dream. And here we are just running before the wind. But my brother and I bought Chimere, and the name Chimere, it's got a few different meanings, but I've always gone with the French meaning, which goes along the lines of unattainable dream or pipe dream. And when we've met French yachties, they've immediately pronounced it as Chimere or Chimere. And I've heard other pronunciations, but we've tended to stick with the unpretentious Chimere. Anyway, I grew up on boats, on dinghies, Compass 29 back in the 70s with my family, and then Nicholson 32s. And our adventures sort of got further and longer, but we always dreamed of having a bigger and stronger boat, so we could go further with a bit more comfort. There's a photo there you can see of in the cockpit. We had the beautiful 10 days to New Zealand, and then on the last day we had 40 to 50 knots in Cook Strait. So this is us running before it with just a little handkerchief up, and you can just see how windy it is. We bought the boat originally in 2006 in Busselton and sailed it back, and it really did become our pipe dream, or the fulfilment of a lifetime dream. And we initially kept the boat up in Pittwater, and then relocated to Melbourne back in 2011 when my brother sold his share to a friend of ours down here in Melbourne. And as you can see from the photos, it's just very versatile. Here we are in the cockpit, and it's pretty blowy outside, but in here just very, very snug. This is down Stewart Island, the bottom of the South Island. We were attracted to Chimere because of her 5-cabin layout, and also her shallow draft and immense strength, and the sweeping flush deck, attractive lines, and the high bulwarks, giving her a feeling of a small sailing ship rather than a yacht. We'd come off a smallish 32-foot 6-ton yacht, and so Chimere at around 30 tons fully laden with 1,400 litres of diesel was quite a change for us. Here's the layout, and you can see the cockpit under the shaded area aft with the davits and a walk-through area through to the dinghy off the stern. You come down the companionway there to the saloon, which extends right across, and then going through the centre corridor on the starboard, you've got a cabin. On the left there's a cabin, and then there's a workshop the next one along on the starboard side, and then a double cabin on the port side, then shower, toilet area, another toilet on the port side, and a forward cabin with 2 bunks in there. And then further forward accessed onto the deck is the anchor well. Because there's so many storage spots, and because we've used Chimere for transporting medical teams around the islands of Vanuatu, we've got this storage layout, so everyone's numbered and you can actually detail what is where on the boat, which is very handy when you've got other people working the boat from time to time. Knowing where everything is very important. The last time I pulled it out, I did a bit of a map of all the through-hole fittings on the port and starboard side, and there they are there. Of course, you've got the engine and the generator and the air conditioner and the sink and all the rest of it, drain holes and so on. And so it's nice to know exactly where they all are. And also up on deck, you've got the various filling holes. We've now got the Blackwater, the toilet holding tank, so now we've got that as a pump out over there on the starboard side, midships, and then on the port side there's the water filling, and then there's some diesel filling as well. The diesel is across 5 tanks, and we've got a map of that, or a little layout diagram coming up shortly too. But being a bigger boat, there's a few lessons to learn if you're not already familiar with bigger boats. Manoeuvring in smaller confined areas is just a learning experience. This is the water layout, 3 tanks, about 1,000 litres. We've got a water maker up forward, and that makes about 3 or 4 litres a minute, and we run that off the 6 kVA diesel generator. There's a fuel layout spread across 5 tanks, and there's a header tank and a couple of filter lines there. And the engine, 85 horsepower Perkins, very efficient, and about 3, well, it depends on the revs, but 3 to 5 litres an hour is pretty average. So you could almost drive to Vanuatu if you wanted to, but it's nice to have that to give you an extra 2 or 3 knots if you're pointing to windward, or just to make sure you meet your deadlines. Now here's some footage a friend took on the New Zealand trip, and this is up in Marlborough Sounds. But you see that there's plenty of room for people to walk around the decks, and we've got some big storage boxes on deck there, which are 4 big bins, and we've got 2 kVA Honda generator in those, and anchor sea anchor, and a whole range of things in there. This is in Ship Cove in Marlborough Sound, where Captain Cook visited several times. We're also attracted to, as I mentioned before, lovely lines of the boat. We added the cockpit covers, and that just gives extreme comfort. You saw before when it was rough outside, raining and so on, it was very snug inside. And there's 2 pilot berths there in the cockpit, port and starboard, so you can see that you can have someone sleeping on watch and someone on watch, or as we were in the islands, it was actually a cabin out there. Looking down below from the companionway into the saloon, there's the galley to starboard, nice big table there, the saloon seats, port and starboard, and there's storage under all of those. This is looking back towards the companionway ladder, and there's another bunk over on the port side just to the right there, and the nav station is further aft there. There's my wife in the galley there cooking up some pancakes, and I think here we've got some bread coming on. But there's quite a large freezer and fridge compartment. That's all 12 volt, and it's very, very efficient, and it's good to have such large fridge and freezer capacity. This is the main cabin. We call it the honeymoon suite on the starboard side. This on the port side, captain's cabin, up and down. And then we've got the workshop full of power tools and a whole range of tools. We call it the Bunnings. And then on the port side there's a double up and down. This is right up in the forward cabin. This is sort of, if you like, a V berth. This is our mascot, our purple dragon, and the Vanuatu flag and the Australian flag, and the Admiral Meerkat there. And that's just a tray for holding batteries and so on. In the saloon, sometimes people sleep in there. This is my son just having a bit of a rest. But it's great for socialising, and it's also good to have your private space when you've got the 5 cabins. As my other son has sort of been a bit wet outside because we're drying clothes, and here I am writing up the daily blog. Out in the cockpit there, as I mentioned before, it's got lee cloth so they can become pilot berths. There's dinner time, and a measure of a good anchorage was whether the beer bottle could sit upside down without falling over. Didn't always happen. This is my wife. It was quite cold down in Stewart Island at the time, so she was rugged up. Here, my son's come in from, you can see it's been raining outside, but beautifully snug inside. And morning time in an anchorage there, every cabin's got its own deck hatch. This is in the Sounds, and you saw there the lever there, or the arm for lifting the dinghy. This is towing the big dinghy, and the Mediterranean ladder on the port side there, just tremendous, particularly for cleaning boots when you're coming up, but it really does make it easy to get aboard. And here she is, sitting in Wellington at the present time. I've got some photographs coming up of the interior equipment and so on of Chimere, but I thought I'd just show these shots just to whet your appetite a little bit for heading off on adventures. This is from down the east coast of New Zealand. A friend took these shots, and you can actually watch the video. I'll put the link with this video. But there's some photographs that show I suppose some of the day-to-day features of the boat and where we got to in New Zealand. And I'll just this is down at Bluff, and you can see it's a tight little spot we've got in there, but no problems once you get experience with manoeuvring it. Here we've got 5 of us aboard the bigger dinghy, which has got a 25 horsepower motor, very versatile. And here we are coming into a small little bolt hole down on Stewart Island, and because the boat is steel and so strong and fairly shallow draft, we felt confident getting in there. And we've got very heavy ground tackle, 13 mil all steel chain with a very large Rockner anchor. And here we are at another small little anchorage, spending a wonderful still night amongst these little islands. And in the cockpit again, we've got it's very snug, and these photographs show there's my wife, and she's not a natural sailor, but out in the cockpit she feels very much lots of fresh air, but the security, but also it's very dry and warm. And here we are, you can see the covers all zipped up there, so we're making our way into the first of the Sounds down in Fiordland, New Zealand, which come from Stewart Island heading up to what is called Otago's Retreat. and in these photographs you'll see Chimere here we got sitting at anchor in the first of those Sounds in Fiordland, and here we are approaching Milford Sound, just majestic. And as we enter Milford Sound, it was really for me a dream come true. And Mitre Peak there, and a small glacier up on the top there. The wind was perfect, the sun was out, and it was just a magic run in. And then we come into the basin, and we were able to pick up a mooring there rather than having to anchor. It's a bit of a problem anchoring in there. And here we are fueling up. Not the place you generally want to fuel up. It's extremely expensive and you have to pay cash. But it's great to meet the locals. Here's a picture of Chimere in Port Vila, and as I mentioned earlier, we did medical transport around the islands of Vanuatu for the group Medical Sailing Ministries, and we did that in 2009, 2010, 2013 and 2017. And over that time there was a constant series of improvements and enhancements to Chimere, and the inventory gives a complete rundown on the equipment. But I thought I'd show just a few photographs here of some of the key items. There's the radar chart plotter combined here, and the wind instruments have just been installed, and they were put in when we replaced the standing rigging in 2020, so that all the standing rigging has been replaced. The depth sounder, the auto helm, VHF, there's also an HF radio here, and we had a Pactor modem which is installed, and we used that 10 years ago for sail mail. The storage boxes on deck are fantastic, and in those we've got, as I mentioned earlier, we've got a range of stuff. We've got the Honda generator for sort of the emergency generator backup, and also for onshore power when needed in the villages. Fuel storage, and around the islands petrol and so on is almost a currency. Lots of lines, a high capacity sump pump and we've saved another yacht from sinking with that, and who knows, water comes in from time to time, and we may need it. We've got the engine, which was under the floor there, the Pagura 6.5 kVA diesel generator. That's it there. Very, very quiet machine, and just tremendous in maintaining batteries and just operations generally. This is lifting the big dinghy on deck, and you can see the big dinghy there on the port side, and we put a daggy old tarp over it just to make it a bit less attractive for people who might want to pinch it. Here's a small one coming up on the starboard side, and when we're voyaging we have them both on the foredeck, and the little one we put on the back when we're around in sheltered waters. All of the lines come to this main winch at the base of the mast. Under the saloon seat, starboard side, we've got 200 kVA amp hour batteries, and then we've got this battery monitor, which is very effective. The control panel for the engines and all of the switches there. There's another control panel here for many of the lights and operations on board. That's the generator control panel there, the air conditioner control panel there just to the right of it. Bilge pumps, there's a bilge alarm, and also the inverter. Up forward there's the anchor winch, and there's a very large anchor well where we store the chain and spare line, warp, and spare anchor. Such an effective anchor, the Rockner. Boom brake, been very effective, and obviously for downwind sailing and that, it's very good. The 2 gas bottles, and each bottle lasts roughly a month. They're under the seat, very well ventilated in the cockpit. And the water maker forward under the centre corridor floor. There's 2 tubes. It's a Stella, Queensland, and the parts are very readily available. And I think I mentioned earlier about 3 to 4 litres per minute we can produce. There's actually 3 pre-filters. So there's a high pressure water pump and a low pressure water pump, and it goes through I think about 700 or 800 psi. So it's but very, very effective. Here's some video of sailing around the islands of Vanuatu, and I suppose in closing you'll notice that the advert shows Chimere in Wellington. Well, it wasn't planned that way, but after sailing to New Zealand last year, 2020, then circumnavigating the South Island, the COVID-19 lockdown descended, and I was essentially stuck aboard, watching the weeks tick by, sitting in a marina. In the end, I managed to secure a flight home to Melbourne, and for Chimere to obtain a suitable berth, with a friend checking on Chimere every few weeks and operating all the systems on board. And my current plan is to return to Wellington as soon as possible and sail the boat back to Australia. But while we're selling Chimere, well, my boat partner and I have slightly different reasons. He's keen to one day get a bigger boat, and I've retired 2 years ago, and I'm finding the cost of upkeep more challenging on my fixed income. I'd also like to be freed up to be involved in my friend's bigger future boat, should that one day occur. But in the meantime, we first need to sell Chimere, which I've had for 14 years. Some people have made the observation that Chimere looks a bit cluttered on deck and not as streamlined as it could be. Well, I thought I'd include a couple of photos of when we purchased the boat back in 2006. Just showing the flush deck and the simple lines to her. We've added all the equipment, and it does look a little crowded on deck to some people. I suppose because we like to be prepared and we like to have the storage, and where we've gone, we've needed to have all of that preparation and equipment. And certainly the addition of the cockpit enclosure gives a very high degree of comfort compared to how it previously was. But I've included those, and if somebody was keen to take everything off, they're certainly able to do that. It's just unbolts. But here's a couple of photographs of how the boat once looked. If you'd like to find out more about Chimere, then simply email me at the email address shown. And if you want to see some more videos and information on Chimere and the trips around Vanuatu, then just have a look at the links also shown there. Thank you for your interest, and look forward to hearing from you.